What's going on, you guys? You got Coach Zoe here with Simple Mom Fitness, and today we're going to go over postpartum exercises for diastasis recti. Okay, so I'm sure that you have heard or seen some, but there might be some confusion. I'm going to go over today the 2 foundational movements that you need to incorporate as soon as you are up to starting your rehab, essentially, for diastasis recti whenever you are cleared by your doctor to start exercise, okay? So we're going to start off with 2 movements, okay? The pelvic tilt and the vacuum. So these 2 exercises are going to be the most important because not just are they activating our transverse abdominis, which is the weak part of our core since we've gone through pregnancy, had our babies, okay, and essentially been resting since then. But these 2 movements are going to be seen in most other exercises if done properly. So we want to take the time to really activate properly and get the mechanics down of these movements. So that way when we are doing our squats, overhead press, push-ups, things like that, we have it on lockdown, okay? So our first one, we'll start with the tilt. Okay, we're going to start off laying flat on our backs, feet on the floor. All right, and we want our low back flush with the ground. So when our low back is flush, once we're here, we're going to take a deep breath in, expand the rib cage, and then as you exhale, you're going to curve your spine. And you're going to think about lifting your tailbone and pointing it towards the ceiling. Okay, once you're here, I want you to try to squeeze a little harder, really push that low back to the floor now. So not only were we flush, but now we're active, pushing against the ground with our low back. And again, we're trying to lift that tailbone off the ground. So you should be able to slide like a tiny piece of paper underneath your tailbone, and then just relax as you breathe in. And again, exhale as you press that low back to the floor and lift your tailbone to point to the ceiling. Okay, so very simple. I'll rep out a few reps for you, that way you can see what it looks like. This is a good pace to start with. Okay, don't focus too hard on holding anything yet, because chances are you're not going to have any endurance there right now. That's okay. I don't want you to try to push it too hard too quickly. So just focus on taking it very slow through the range of motion. And when you're at the top of that pelvic tilt, right, so when you're at full contraction here, it's going to feel shaky. You're going to feel a lot in this area, just kind of below the rib cage. All right, and again, this is that deep core, that very important core strength that we need to build, that keeps our posture upright, okay, that helps with any back or hip pain that you might feel after baby. So we want to take the time to activate properly. All right, eventually as you progress, you could work on just holding it as long as you can, okay? But otherwise, we're just here repping it out. So I would just do a few reps, not necessarily to failure, but to whatever feels good for you, that feels like, okay, we're starting to feel it, we're getting fatigued, but we're not yet at failure, okay? So that is exercise 1, your pelvic tilt. Your next one, okay, let's just start off if you're, again, brand new postpartum, you haven't done anything yet, okay, it's going to be your vacuum. Start in this position, sitting on your heels, on your feet. You could just do it sitting on your couch, that's fine too, but I want your hips stable and I want them even. So if you're sitting crisscross applesauce, you're kind of already tilting that pelvis. You want to get away from that. So sit on your heels, or again, on a hard chair or at the edge of your couch, so that way your hips are nice and even. And what you're going to do, it's a lot of breath work here, okay, because it's all working together. But when you breathe in, you're going to expand the belly as much as you can. And then as you exhale, you're going to slowly engage and draw the belly in and create a vacuum, right? You're going to draw your abdominals in towards your spine as much as possible. And while we're doing this, we want to keep that integrity in the spine. So it's not a cat-cow situation, okay, for those of you that are familiar with that. It's expanding the abdominals and then contracting and drawing them inwards, okay? Now, if you have never done this before, or you're a little bit more of a beginner, I'll drop my arms to the side. Inhale, expand, and exhale, I'm drawing in. Try to start at the base, right? So we want to start by drawing in and working our way up. And then as we exhale, release the upper abdominals, and then work your way down to release the lower. Okay, so we're gonna work our way up and then work our way back down. So as we inhale, we start from the bottom. As we exhale, we start from the top. Or I'm sorry, as we exhale, we start from the bottom. As we inhale, we start from the top, okay? So, and those of you that may have done yoga before, that might sound familiar, that's how we breathe, right? We should be breathing with our chest. So just like when we're doing these vacuums, as we inhale, okay, we expand the belly, we're gonna start from the top, and then as we exhale, we're gonna collapse the lower belly, collapse the mid, and then collapse the upper. So this is just to start. You're not moving the rest of your spine at all. Now, once you feel a little more comfortable there, you could take like a hinged position. I like to just jump right to a tabletop because I feel a little more supported here rather than in this bent over position. Then you can kind of get into that spine breakdown. So here, a nice flat back, same thing. You're gonna exhale, and I like this position after we've done it seated, maybe at least a few days, maybe a week or two, and we're more comfortable there. Because once we're in this position, you have to fight gravity now. You have to fight gravity for that vacuum. So it creates that mind-muscle link more, that motor control. And it's going to force you to really work with your breath for the proper mechanics. So inhale again, right? Expand the belly, and then as you exhale, start from the belly button, draw in towards the spine, and you work your way all the way up towards the ribs. You should be pretty out of breath, right? When you're in that full vacuum, you shouldn't really be able to talk. I'm not doing it all the way because I'm trying to coach you through it right now, but you should have no air inside of you to talk or to breathe out. You're breathing out that whole way. Once you get to the top of that breath, go ahead, begin your inhale and expand. Okay, so those are your two basic foundation movements. The reason I say that they're your foundation, because think about when we're doing squats, okay, when we're squatting, right, we're in this pelvic tilt, and we have to drive, we have to bear down to push through the floor. So we're doing that pelvic tilt. If we have a weight like a front squat or even maybe overhead, you have to vacuum, otherwise you compromise your form, right? Or if you're doing an overhead press, right? If you're weak in the front, you're gonna feel this extension, overextension, and now you're doing way too much to this low back. This low back now is starting to carry all this weight. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but that's what's gonna be happening if we're not properly engaged and vacuuming inwards, okay? So that's what I mean is it's going to be across most of your movements. Even in a deadlift, we're vacuuming. Honestly, I would say that you're gonna vacuum more often than you're actively engaging in a pelvic tilt. But when you do ab exercises, you're gonna be doing a lot of pelvic tilts, so you wanna have that down and feel good and strong and in control. I'm going to show you some progressive exercises. So once you feel comfortable there, maybe you've done those for a couple weeks, okay, you have the control down, you're ready to take the next step. If we're doing a pelvic tilt, I'll take it back to the ground. Your next move would be to do the dead bug. So there are so many different ways to do the dead bug and to progress the dead bug. So you can be in the dead bug, could be your next progression for a little while. So knees are directly over your hips. Again, that back is flush to the ground, so you should already be tilting just a little bit. Hands are over the shoulders. Now, other ways that you could do this is you could just start with just the upper body. It's gonna be a little bit easier. What I like to do, again, work with my breath, especially while I'm in my postpartum phase and I'm still recovering, okay, is breathe in, right? Breathe in, because you're expanding through that belly. When you breathe out, that's when you can really get your pelvic tilt done, because we have to maintain this pelvic tilt, right? Notice my hips. I'm not in a pelvic tilt. I'm engaged in a pelvic tilt. See the difference? So if I'm not, and I'm doing all this extension, okay, not good, right? So I want you to exhale, pelvic tilt, and then from here you can do one arm at a time and just slowly lower down, okay, keeping your knees hovering, or you could do both arms at a time, right? And you'll still feel all that work done, especially at the beginning, okay? It might look like you're not doing much, you are, especially if you're focusing on pushing that low back to the ground, and pulling up on your tailbone. If you feel like there's not too much going on there, that's because you're not engaged. After that, if you want to progress a little bit more, you could do just the legs. So you can extend one leg at a time, really slow. You can extend even halfway or keep your knee bent still and just touch. So there's all these different ways that you can progress without jumping full throttle into it. So find which one feels like the right progression for you. A little challenging, but not out of your realm of proper control and mechanics. So again, you could just touch, keeping that knee bent. You could extend halfway, or you can extend all the way. And then both legs could work together. Once you're good with one at a time, you could do both feet touch the ground, both legs extend halfway, or both legs extend all the way, okay? So you can move to just upper body, just lower body. You can alternate up then lower, or if you're onto the full dead bug, you're gonna do arms and legs at the same time, but alternate. So if my right arm's going to extend, again, I'm locked and loaded in that pelvic tilt. My right arm's going to extend, as is my left leg, okay? So what we're doing here is now we're getting that, like, without having to do a twisting motion, we're getting those twisting muscles, right? Without twisting, okay? Because we don't really want to be doing a lot of heavy twisting when we still are dealing with our diastasis recti. What we want to be doing is working the abdominals to control and stay stable while our limbs move, right? So they're working against movement this time. So again, locked in that pelvic tilt, right arm, left leg, slow and controlled. The slower, the better, right? You're not in a hurry, there's no race, and then you'll alternate, right? And then say you feel good with that, you could even take it, right, to everything. But I wouldn't take it there until you've been doing it for quite a while, okay? So your dead bug would be the next progression. To take the dead bug even another step further, excuse me, my goodness, would be a bird dog. And it depends, you know, the bird dog might feel good for you before the dead bug does. I would say maybe start with the arms before you progress from anything. But it just depends on what's harder for you to do. Maybe the pelvic tilt's harder, or maybe the vacuum is. The bird dog's going to incorporate the pelvic tilt in the vacuum. Okay, now, when we do the bird dog, we have to draw in, all right, but we also have to maintain this tilt, okay? Because if not, I'm in that cow position, right? I have a dip in my low back. There's no stability there. There's no engagement, so I have to tilt my pelvis and then draw the belly in. Okay, I can tilt my pelvis and be relaxed, but I could also draw my belly in and be relaxed. So see how they work together? I'm tilting my pelvis and I'm drawing my belly in. Now my core is locked, my spine is stable, and from here, it's the dead bug is the bird dog, but it is the same thing, just flipped over. So right arm, left leg extends, and draw them back down, and then you can alternate, or you can just stay on one side, right? So our core is working against the working limbs, right? It's staying stable while the limbs are moving. And again, just like in the dead bug, how you could just do upper body, right? We could just do arms to start, or we could just do legs, right? And then we could do both. So play around with it, see what feels good for your next progression, but my personal preference would be to say start with that dead bug first, okay? Because again, you can maintain a little bit more control when we're here. We tend to feel more confident than we really are. It might take it too far. All right, now, if we're gonna go back to our vacuums, you might hear, people say not to plank, not to do push-ups when you have diastasis recti. Yes and no. So you might be healing, maybe not all the way healed, but if you do it properly, planks and push-ups are a good way to activate that vacuum when you have progressed enough to handle it under control. So now it doesn't have to be a full-blown plank like hands and feet. We could be in a modified plank with our knees down, right? Just like this. I'm still in a plank, I'm just carrying less weight. But when I'm in a plank, if I'm not engaged, right, you're gonna see this spilling, right? I'm doing the opposite of a pelvic tilt, right? And now I'm open, I'm loose, I'm disengaged in the abdominals. But when I vacuum, I'm sucking it in, my hips are up a little bit. Notice I still have that nice long line, but I'm active here. It's going to be a lot more intense. So again, this is a progressed exercise, a progressed movement. This is not day one of being allowed to work out again. And then same thing when you do your push-up, and I extremely like push-ups after I have my children because, and again, after some time, after I've spent time getting comfortable with my dead bugs, with my bird dogs, because when I come up from that push-up, okay, a lot of times, right, because I'm a little weaker in the arms, I haven't been doing a lot of push-ups during pregnancy, right, this starts to happen where the hips are left behind. So it really forces me to draw my belly in, right, relax, draw my belly in, and then initiate my push-up, okay, and it helps lay the foundation for push-ups down the line when we're stronger without having to do just the arm push-ups, okay, and leaving the hips behind, or arms and hips, right? It should be all one movement, the whole core working together, all right? So you're vacuuming as you lower down. I like to take a little breather and then pull in and exhale as I push up, okay? So again, it's a much more intense vacuum, so not right away, but when you're ready for it, that's what you can work on next, okay? And again, another progression, so not right away, but Supermans are going to be the vacuum, but the opposite. So when we're working so hard to draw inwards, right, because that's where we're weak, we also want to make sure that we're taking time to push and pull in the body. So the Superman is another good, again, progressed exercise for your diastasis recti because we're working that inward draw, but we also want to be good at that bearing down under control. So when we lift everything up, not only are we engaging in our extension, right, working all these erectors, our back muscles, which is very, very good for them, okay, all the posterior chain is active right now. If I wasn't talking, okay, I'm pushing, right? Here I'm relaxed, I'm pushing. So this is like when I inhale and I'm pushing my abdominal wall out. And then when I relax down to the ground, I can inhale, draw the belly in, exhale, push out, inhale, relax. Okay, so kind of like a reverse vacuum, but again, that push and pull is very important. The pull is a lot more important at the beginning because we've spent so much time overexpanded, right, while we held our babies. But the Superman is a very good move to incorporate later on because you're actively pushing that floor away to lift and extend through the posterior chain, okay? So just like we need to push and pull, right? Push-ups, we need to pull and do those rows. We have to stay balanced. It's good to do those Supermans down the line because, again, you're pushing that floor away. You're pushing against some resistance rather than just doing crunches, right? You're pushing outward in the reverse vacuum mechanics, okay? So, and then one more movement. I didn't have my resistance band with me, but you would put it around just above your knees, okay? But even before you're at that point, okay, and that's, again, a more of a progressed version, but would be the fire hydrant. And I'm going to work from an angle just so you can see, you know, kind of a front and side view at the same time. So again, we're in that tabletop position, hands underneath the shoulders, knees beneath the hips. And I'm going to, again, I'm working like those obliques, those cross body core muscles while I have a limb moving. So instead of just kicking back, it's more work. So again, another stepped progression, so further down the line. But now I'm taking it outside, which takes a lot more control to maintain that vacuum and maintain that pelvic tilt while I lift the limb. And again, if I go side to side, traditionally you're going to knock out your reps on one side before you switch, okay? But it takes a lot more control to draw in when we're working outwards rather than just backwards. Okay, so you spend all that time doing up, down, forward, backward movements, so let's make sure we're doing laterals too. Okay, but otherwise that's all I have for you today. So if you want to learn more about how often to do these ab workouts or ab exercises when you have diastasis recti, head over to the blog, simplemomfitness.com. I have a whole article about that too. Okay, and you can go into even more depth. But otherwise, I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me.